I really think that one of the outcomes of this might be buyers have to sign a, I don't know, some kind of buying contract or, whatever they call that versus a
Yep.
listing agreement. And so I think real estate transactions could fundamentally change 3, 4, 5 years from now. I also think with the size of these awards and the sheer number of them that never seem to stop, NAR could cease to exist. Folks, I don't think we've had this conversation on this channel, which is kind of odd. We haven't talked about the NAR, National Association of Realtors lawsuit, all about buyer commissions. I hear Taylor's going to put out some content today, so let's break it down. Let's see what's going on. How you doing, Taylor?
I'm doing great. This is one where, admittedly, this is your expertise, not mine, but I've done some research on this, and Barron's put out an awesome article this week, and I've been tracking this for a couple months now, and I didn't realize the power of the National Association of Realtors. Like, case in point, just one thing I'll say to begin with, the word realtor. They have a trademark on the word
Yeah.
realtor. You cannot be a realtor unless you pay a due for a membership to the National Association of Realtors.
Yep.
That was a crazy one to me. So, one, to begin with, they have this outside influence where you essentially kind of have to be a member of them if you're a real estate agent. Second thing, that in most states, you don't have access to the MLS without a membership with the National Association of Realtors.
Yep.
And so in this video, and I'll put it out later today, I refer to them as the mob boss of
Getting
real
their
estate.
big. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, here's kind of what they look like. Okay, so realtor, MLS, both incumbent upon being a National Association of Realtor member. They spent more money, the second most of any association, lobbying DC last year. Second most of any association. They're incredibly powerful. So what happens is then they don't set the fees, the commission structure for
Right.
a buy and sell. But
Right.
what they do is they dictate that the seller sets the buyer's agent fee in a transaction. And so historically, it's been, call it 3 and 3 or
Yep.
2.5 and 2.5. So somewhere between 5 and 6. It showed that last year, the average transacted home was 5 and a third, 5.3%.
Okay.
So that sounds about right to me. And when you look throughout history, that's been about the point as well. So then the buyers of this massive class action lawsuit come to them and say, listen, there is incentive in here for the National Association of Realtors to maintain high levels of commission on buyers because they want their realtors making money and continuing to pay the dues. And so if you're a seller and you are now setting the buyer's agent fee, 50% of the transactions, you may very well be the buyer. What is the incentive for you? Keep those fees high on both sides so you're getting paid on both sides of the ball. And the National Association of Realtor sets this pricing structure. They don't set the fee, but they set the structure of the seller setting the buyer's agent commission. They want it all to remain high so people continue to use their service and pay them a monthly or annual membership so they can have access to the MLS, so they can call themselves a realtor. And the great thing about this is the best part about this. So now they have this 1.8 million or billion dollar loss in billion with a law. Yeah, on the law side. And yes, they're going to take that to the next level, but now they're getting massive outstanding lawsuits against them. And they're now trying to move all of them in the Northern District of Illinois, because the quote is something ridiculous to the point where, like, they're very familiar with the National Association of Realtors. It's like, okay, we want to take this to our hometown judges and have all the cases heard up here. It's an interesting one. I'm interested to get your take because you come from such a different side of the business to me. Real estate is what you do and have done.
It's really interesting because, what was really highlighted in that case is, the dirty little secret, if you will, right? When you sell something, you're paying the buyer side, right? It's just part of the equation.
This one has always shocked me. I put out a video 2 months ago on this when this whole thing started to lay out, and they're like, no, the buyer doesn't pay a fee. I'm like, come on, guys. The buyer doesn't pay a fee. The seller pays it. If they didn't have to pay 6%, they only had to pay 3% or 4.5%. What do you think happens to the cost of the home? It comes down. The buyer pays a fee.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. The buyer does pay a fee at the end of the day. But when you look at the settlement statement, It's all the seller. So I think where this is going
Correct.
to come down is I think if you sold a home in the last, I don't know, pick a period, a decade, 2 decades, there's going to be some kind of resolution where you get a couple of bucks back. That's just how this is going to boil down. Because as somebody who was a realtor, right? I paid my dues for a year or two, whatever it was. It was just part of the framework, right? It was a standard, it wasn't forced, it wasn't a rule, but it was the framework. And buyers, sellers, it was just accepted, right? It had been that way for a long time. I do think that's going to unwind. But when I look long term, where this might go, this is years out because this will go through, this may go to the Supreme Court, right? So this is years from now. I actually think buyers agents really need to think about what they're doing. I really think that one of the outcomes of this might be buyers have to sign I don't know, some kind of buying contract or, whatever they call that versus a
Yep.
listing agreement. And so I think real estate transactions could fundamentally change 3, 4, 5 years from now. I also think with the size of these awards and the sheer number of them that never seem to stop, NAR could cease to exist,
Oh,
right? They
I
have
think
deep
that's
pockets.
incredibly likely is that
Yeah.
they go defunct. They have right now about $1 billion in cash. They just
Yeah.
lost a lawsuit for 1.8,
Yeah.
and they have more coming in the pipeline.
Yeah. I think it was the Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts or something that just got hit with all those lawsuits and they just went bankrupt. They just said, okay, enough. We'll go bankrupt. All the lawsuits disappear or whatever happens. And then they just, yeah, that could be an outcome for NAR.
And admittedly, I have a very jaded personal experience. So I bought one house in my life, and
Okay.
I just think that this is, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't
Well,
as common as what I think it is.
all right.
I found the house on Zillow.
Yep.
I said to my realtor, "Could you open the door for this
Yep.
house for me?" The realtor opened the door. I walked in. We loved the house. We bought the house. We negotiated. We didn't negotiate. He negotiated, but we told him what
What to
price
say?
to
Yep.
negotiate.
Yep.
And like we paid a middleman. And again, maybe I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not claiming to be more educated. Everybody has the ability to do that if they want to spend the time doing that.
Yep. Yep.
What did I pay 3%? And you could say I didn't pay them. The seller paid them 3% for that transaction. We could have
Right.
taken that not Kager. We could have taken that difference out of there and
Yeah.
put it back in my pocket.
You could have split it maybe, right? You get 1.5, I get 1.5, something like that.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
I know, again, maybe that's a very jaded view. And maybe I was an easy client because we didn't look at a ton of houses. We looked at like 4.
Yeah.
So he did show me two others. Yeah. So 3 total
Yeah.
that we didn't like. But at the end of the day, we just asked him to open the door on those too.
Yeah. No, I think the real estate industry is going to fundamentally change. I really do. I think, there was a time. Well, let's go back. If you've actually read my book, One Rental at a Time, I said I wanted to get my license because I thought this is in my book. I thought there was data in the MLS that I could not get on Zillow, Realtor, Redfin. That was my belief. That's why I did all the studying. That's why I took the test. That's why I paid the fees. I get into the damn thing and I'm like, there's a notes field, which is like barely ever filled out. And, basically nothing else. I'm like, this is not what I was thinking it would be. So yeah, it's going to change, I think.
It'll be interesting to watch this play out. I do think that, listen, my industry, I'm in the asset management industry. Like fees have come down
Oh yeah.
considerably across the board. Like technology just creates efficiencies. When I can see the house that you've listed on
Yeah.
Zillow, all the pictures that you've taken, like
But
that just
here's the
creates
one thing that
efficiency.
their realtor will say. And I don't know what percentage, but I'm going to guess there's some. Because one of the things we're seeing today, or at least I see today, because I look for housing every day. Zillow shows some, Redfin shows some. That's not like a complete overlap.
Yep. Yep.
MLS is supposed to be that like single source of truth. So that's one thing I think we've got to definitely clean up.
Well,
Right?
okay, but look at it from a seller's perspective, a seller's agent perspective.
Sure.
If it's not going to go here, and it's not going to be anywhere if it's not there. They're going to put it on Zillow. They're going to put it on Redfin.
They can. It
If
happens.
you have to
Yeah.
get it out there to market it,
Yeah.
and MLS isn't there anymore, like it seems like it has to.
You know
I
what?
don't know.
There's some smart people out there. I bet you could. Somebody should look this up, and maybe it's happened. But there's this transaction called for sale by owner, right? FSBO.
Yep.
There's probably a lot more of those today than there were a decade ago because of Redfin, Zillow, such and such, right? I bet somebody could pull the data on actuals for sale by owners and realtor marketed.
Yep.
And let's see if there's a difference. Because maybe with coaching, they give you like, hey, clean up, declutter, take better pictures. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's higher margin, right? Maybe
But
you get 5%. I don't know.
You're making a good point that maybe I haven't made clear. I don't have a problem with the seller's agent. I have a problem with the buyer's agent. I do think there is massive value, and maybe I'm wrong on this. I haven't sold a ton of houses, so I'm no expert here either. Actually, I have not sold a house. So again, don't let me talk out of my,
I got
out of my rear end. But it seems like there's a lot of value to be added on the seller side. How you list a house, how you show the pictures, all of that. But again, like I've been on the buyer's agent side where literally I'm like, hey, can you get me access to that house? Just let me in the door.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see probably sooner rather than later is technology's answer to this is, hey, if you found it, write the offer here. But then then the listing agent's going to take on some liability because of inspections and of these other things. But yeah, back to the earlier point. I think buying a home is going to change.
But my buyer's agent doesn't do any of the inspection.
No, but they do assume some of the liability to make sure it's happened, make sure it's report, make sure you understand.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That shows my naivety. I didn't realize that was an obligation on their front.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Unless you explicitly say, I don't want them.
You know what the biggest problem to me is? The biggest problem that I foresee is, okay, I list my house. How do I vet the people that walk through the door? That's the biggest problem to me is like, listen, if I could just tell you that Mike is a credible person and he can walk through the house and you not have to worry about whatever it is, and is a serious buyer, that's the thing that I see as the big hurdle to overcome. But I think that there's got to be ways to vet that technologically as well. Input all your statements, whatever it is. Like people are willing to
validate who you are. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. This is going to be fun. So the NAR lawsuit's not over. It's going higher. It's getting bigger. One of the outcomes is they could disappear or, reorganize or whatever the right answer is. But yeah, this is certainly not over. Taylor, where can people find you? Where can they find this video? It's coming out.
Yeah. Follow us at Life Goal Investments. We're on both Instagram and on TikTok. I'll put it out later on today.
Awesome, buddy. I appreciate you.